Tonight, records, the saying goes, are made to be broken. But the first person to achieve a remarkable feat will always hold a special place. There can never be another person who was first.
That is the role that Arlette Laan is now in. You've almost certainly never heard of her, even though she now holds an extraordinary American hiking record. We didn't know of her either, but she told us her story in New Hampshire in the Mount Washington Valley. In 2003, Arlette Laan set out on a trip like nothing she'd done before, hiking the length of California, Oregon, and Washington along the 2,600-mile Pacific Crest Trail. What made you want to do that?
So it was going to be, that's my first midlife crisis. So I was 30.
You make it sound as though it's the first of several.
I don't know. But I was 31, and I figured that would be my last big adventure before settling down and having a family.
Turns out it wasn't even close to being her last big adventure. She followed it up by hiking the 3,000-mile Continental Divide Trail. At that point, were you hooked? Did you know then that you wanted to keep doing it in a serious and systematic way?
No, I did the first one, and then I didn't even know about any of the other long-distance trails. So, I was just randomly hiking trails that interested me. 2018, I met up with Nimble Nomad, who had hiked all 11, and he's like, well, you've already done so many, you could be the first woman to do them all. I was like, well, that'd be interesting. So then I was kind of figuring which ones I had left, and started checking those off.
She makes it all sound rather matter-of-fact, but what she was doing was remarkable, becoming the first woman to hike every one of America's 11 national scenic trails, an exhausting, blister-inducing 18,000 miles in all. So this summer you completed the last of the 11 national scenic trails. How did it feel?
Good. But yeah, it's a good feeling. It's a nice accomplishment. Yeah. And then now I can hike whatever I want to hike again. It's not part of a list.
You seem kind of about it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like you finish, then you get home and it's back to work. So it's not like, oh my God, I did this big thing and now I can celebrate for months and months and months. Not so I don't know.
To spend that much time on the trails in summer, fall, winter, and spring, sometimes alone, sometimes with her husband, sometimes with a friend, has required real sacrifices.
It's been a while since I've really worked, consistently, so. That's
a question that people would have, is how have you been able to just devote the time, and it does cost money to do these things, how have you been able to do it?
So live very cheaply at home, don't spend a lot of money, and then for the last 2 years I've been leaning a little bit on my husband as well.
Arlette has 2 part-time businesses of her own. She works as a hiking guide in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, and she makes dolls out of socks. The dolls, which she describes as sweet and quirky, are usually dressed like hikers. They're often hung on hiking backpacks as little mascots.
It's the creative part of me. On the trail, I can't be creative as much. I take the photos, which is fun, and I might write a blog and sometimes put some creativity in writing. But getting back to creating things with colors and patterns and making fun stuff, that's really, it's fun.
The range and the variety of trails that you've done is remarkable. And some of those trails, even though they're called National Scenic Trails, they're really not all that pretty, right?
They're okay to drive through. The Natchez Trace should be a historic route or something because there's interesting history, but there's not a lot of trail. And then the trail that is there isn't very well maintained, so you're basically just walking a parkway. In terms of scenery, in terms of the trails that just give you a thrill sometimes when you come around a bend, what are the ones that are your favorites? So Continental Divide Trail, Pacific Crest Trail, and Arizona Trail. Those I'm out west I really love. Out here, it takes some getting used to the trails being not really trails with the boulders and all of that, but I've gotten to love those now too. And if you go over the Presidential Range, you've got the view. It's amazing. Another of Arlette's enormously impressive achievements is closer to home. She has climbed every one of the 100 tallest mountains in New England. What drives you to do these kinds of things? I really genuinely like being outdoors. I love exploring and experiencing new experiences.
There are two elements to long distance hiking. There is the hiking, and then there's the camping. You got to
Right.
fend for yourself every night.
Right.
Do you enjoy that part of the experience?
Yes, when you're out in the wilderness or when you're out in national forests where the camping is easy. When you're in Ohio in like farm country and there's not a lot of possibilities for camping, it's very challenging.
When Arlette did her first big hike in 2003, she carried a compass, paper maps, and a printed guidebook. She didn't even have a cell phone. Technology has certainly changed the nature of long-distance hiking.
With the apps on your smartphone and all of that, it becomes a different experience, a little easier, a little less stressful, but then there's other stresses like, oh, I got to charge my battery.
Which do you prefer? If you could choose one or the other, which would it be? Little or no technology or the contemporary technology?
So for me, because I've done the no technology part, which was great and adventurous, and now I'm like, well, I'll take the apps because it's easy.
For now, having conquered the biggest challenge in American long-distance hiking, Arlette plans to stick with shorter trips. She likes hiking in New Hampshire, and when we spoke, she was getting ready for a trip the following week up Katahdin.
And when you get to the end of your life, to the end of your trail, and you look back on what you've done, what do you think is going to really stand out for you?
I don't know. That's a good question. What's going to really stand out? Just that I did the things I wanted to do, and I didn't let other people's fear keep me from doing it. Because there's always people that are like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that by yourself, as a woman alone. That's what I'm most proud of, maybe, is just yeah, don't let other people's fear keep you from doing the things you want to do.
If she had set a record like that in a more popular sport, in figure skating or
Right.
in gymnastics or something like that, she would be known from coast to coast, but nobody knows who she is because hiking is not a big high-profile sport. It's not televised, no money there.
Right.
So, interesting woman. Grew up in Europe, lives in Massachusetts, and now does most of her hiking in New Hampshire.
And 18,000 miles total.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Just incredible.
pretty staggering.
My gosh, great story.